señor Stephen Nolan es CEO de Sustainable Nation Ireland en Dublín, que es miembro del FC4Us y a la vez actúa como coordinador del Hub Europeo de la Red de Financial Centers for Sustainability, que engloba las ciudades europeas que forman parte del mismo y que se presentó la semana pasada en Dublín. Por lo tanto, señor Nolan es el ponente ideal para que conozcamos a fondo estas iniciativas y poder así tener una idea exacta de las posibilidades que representan. Stephen, first of all, I want to thank you for being today with us, sharing your knowledge and experience about the FC4Us initiative, the actual situation of the network at the global level and the European Hub especially, its goals, the projects, developments that are already currently working, and the future action that you forecast. Please your turn, Stephen.
Thank you very much. A bit comical. Thank you, Louise. Thank you for having me here today. I'm delighted to be back with you. Only after a few months when we had our first meeting, so thank you for having me here today. I'm delighted to be with you. It's always a pleasure to be in Barcelona. And so, as I said, thank you very much. As Louise said, my name is Stephen Nolan. I'm the CEO of Ireland's public-private sector platform, working to position Ireland as a leading green and sustainable finance hub, while also raising awareness of the ESG agenda across all asset classes in Ireland and the banks. I'm here today as well with my title as convener, as Louise said, of the UN Financial Centres for Sustainability European Node, and I'm also a member of the Global Board of Financial Centres for Sustainability, which is terrific. I'll speak to the Financial Centres for Sustainability in a moment, but just in brief, last week in Ireland, and supported by our Minister for Finance, we held Ireland's first Climate Week. It was focused on the role of the capital markets can play in the climate action agenda, and over 1,200 people attended. And so by Friday, I was absolutely exhausted, but it was a great week, and we moved the agenda on, and then I was able to go and see U2 perform in concert in Dublin on Friday, and then watch Ireland beat Argentina in the rugby on Saturday. So it was a good end of a week. Last week in Dublin, among the 1,200 people, we were delighted to have Angel from Barcelona flying the flag, which is brilliant, among 11 other European financial centres. Beatriz from the Spanish Banking Authority also attended, as did Tony Balbriga, who is the Global Head of Responsible Banking for BBVA and the Chairman of the European Banking Federation Working Group on Sustainable Finance. So we're delighted to see that Barcelona and the wider Spanish community was present in Dublin, so we thank you for that. Thank you, Louise. My goal today is to brief you on the UN Financial Centres for Sustainability Network, and recognising that a lot of other speakers have come before me, and you've heard this already, I won't go through this, but to quickly recap, the Paris Agreement, a lot of money is required. That's an understatement to meet the targets. The G20 have estimated it's 90 trillion by 2030. The EU has said 2 trillion for Europe by 2030, and Ireland itself, as one of the smaller nations, needs 50 billion or so. So it's big sums of money are required. So what does that mean? As you heard from the Commission earlier on today, policymakers are working hard to create the right conditions to allow these amounts of capital flow into the projects. And within that, they've recognised the important role that financial centres can play in this effort. That's why in mid-2017, the G7 asked the UN Environment to look at how could they mobilise financial centres around the world in support of this agenda. And together, in a collaborative form, under one banner, catalyse the agenda within their own financial centres. In Milan this year, earlier on in March, as a result of the G7's call to action, the UN Environment launched the Financial Centres for Sustainability Global Network. Right now, there's just around 20 members across Asia, North America, Africa and Europe. The lion's share of members are from Europe, underpinning Europe's advancement at the centre level in understanding this agenda and the work that's happening. And Mayor Bloomberg recently has set up a Wall Street Sustainable Finance Group, and they're now the next member to join the FC4S Global Network. And as I said, Europe is the continent that has got the most centres within this initiative, again highlighting Europe's leadership role in this space. And this is no surprise, given the European Commission's action plan for finance and sustainable growth, and also COP21 and what happened in Paris a few years ago. It really mobilised not just Paris, but a pan-European capital markets participation in this agenda. And that's why it was great to see the BDO Paris brief earlier on. So, as I said, no surprise given the EC's action plan. It's making us all sit up and try to figure out how we engage and the benefits. Because this is not philanthropy and it's not corporate social responsibility. It's deal flow, it's looking for a return, and hopefully superior returns. So that's why this FC4S has been established. Oh, thank you. So bringing this all together, the UN FC4S Global Network is aiming to mobilize centres, as I said, and why they're saying that this is important for 7 reasons. One, within a centre, it raises awareness of the agenda. They can help to broaden awareness across different market segments. Today we're talking about banking, but in Ireland last week it was insurance, banking, asset management, asset ownership, and aviation aircraft leasing, believe it or not. Promote market expansion. So financial centres can also help to boost existing market segments, such as responsible investment and green bond issuance, which you just talked to a few minutes ago. In Ireland last week, we launched Ireland's first responsible investment report. We surveyed a number of Irish located asset managers that managed just under 100 billion euros in funds, and 81% of them all had a responsible investment policy in place, and 50% of them also had a sustainable finance teamed fund working away. Stimulate financial innovation. Part of the challenge we're seeing here is, are there old products fit for purpose? And so within this whole agenda in Ireland, as you probably know, we had a major crash a decade ago. We lost our shirt, we had to get bailed out, and a lot of it was around property. And so part of the challenge you now see is around the credit risk around some of these more sustainability themed investments, and part of that is building capacity around the understanding there. The fourth one is developing market standards, and again, the green bonds. So what market standard are you working to? Building skills, BDO talked about that. It's a way to retain staff. It doesn't mean you throw out the skill base that's in this room. All you're doing is layering on top of that, which is an excellent world-class skill base. Providing a voice to policymakers. Policymakers, regulators, sometimes they don't know the full agenda. And listening to one of the directors of policy and risk from the Irish Central Bank last week, he was very honest in saying, we're still trying to figure this out. So this is actually at a pan-European level from policymakers, regulators, and people in this room. We are still trying to figure out this opportunity, but we are getting there. And then obviously measure progress. So where are we at in terms of meeting the Paris targets? If I may. Obviously the ecosystem of actors, you all know, insurance, banks, policy and public finance, investors, knowledge actors, which is why it's great to see who's co-hosting today, asset owners, managers, specialists, stock exchange where we are, and as I said, insurance already. So that's kind of what the FC4S saw as a kind of key platform. And within that, how is the FC4S mandate being delivered, the G7 backed? It's been delivered at a regional level. So only a few weeks ago, Financial Centres for Sustainability Asia launched in Shanghai, which is fantastic. And then last week in Dublin, Financial Centres for Sustainability Europe was launched. And we've been given a grant of €1.5 million from the European Commission to mobilise centres in Europe in support of this agenda. And that's why it was great to have Ancal and Barcelona present yesterday or last week in Dublin. And again, further underpinning Europe credentials, leadership credentials in this space. So what is the FC4S Europe trying to do? Fundamentally, it's trying to mobilise 30 financial centres located in Europe to further embed this agenda, and then also accelerate the unlocking of the capital to meet the Europe's $2 trillion required over the next decade. How do we do this? We do this through a 6-step process. 1 is assess positioning, 2 set priorities, build capacity, catalyse action, share best practice, and review and refine. McKinsey, one of these guys would charge us a fortune for that, but there it is there, that's how we're doing it. And what's very interesting, on the right-hand side of that slide, is actually to measure progress, as I said earlier on. So level 0 is ground zero, very little activity happening in the financial centre in this space. Level 5 is obviously achieving total alignment. Nobody's there yet. But if you look at Paris, for example, or London, they're in around 11.3, and they were considered leaders in this space. If I can then localise this for a moment, because it's great to see in a slide, nice colours, this is the step. But if I look at it from a Dublin perspective and the initiative that I lead, so a number of months ago when we got involved in this initiative, what we first did was follow this agenda, and we assessed where is Dublin in this agenda. 1, we found out KPMG supported. There's €28 billion of green finance activities happening in Dublin, which is a lot more than we thought was happening across funds and different activities and listing of green bonds. So we were thrilled with that. That allowed us then to figure out what's going on and who's doing it. And with government under the public-private partnership, set strategic priorities to grow that and to help meet European or Irish targets and within that European. And what we're currently developing is a national blueprint for Ireland in green and sustainable finance, which our Department of Finance will then implement across the different bodies. 3, as BDO said earlier on, it's all great that we know what we have. It's great that we're developing a strategy, but core to all this is skills. Again, it's about layering on with the phenomenal skills that exist in Dublin, and for example here in Barcelona, a further understanding of this agenda, the policy issues that we're working within, and then obviously from a deal flow perspective, the risks and managing those risks. So within Ireland, what we're now doing, and we announced it last week, it's only a small amount. We're setting aside $500,000 for next year to work with our banks and insurance firms to upskill a lot of their staff in this space. But what we're doing in Q1 is in a very deep piece of research to say, where do we need to be by 2025 with the skill set then to make sure that we're actually working very effectively in this agenda. The fourth one is catalyze innovation. So, you know, Dublin and Ireland is awash with startup camps. There's hundreds of startups around the place. They're all fantastic. They're usually small. Most of them don't survive. So what we've actually looked at is how can we support entrepreneurship at the large firms? So our large banks, our large asset managers, one of the Italian asset managers, Mediolanum, who are a fantastic innovator. So what we're now doing is working with those large firms to support their internal innovation, which we hope will then develop products and services that will unlock capital in this area. The fifth one is best practice. Learning from Paris, London, and others, incredibly open. This is a $90 trillion opportunity. No one centre can actually hold it all. So what we're seeing at a European level is there's incredible openness for the different centres that are ahead in that level 1 to 5 to assist other centres and share best practice. And Ankel, I think you saw that last week when there was 11 centres in the room all talking about what they are doing. And then the sixth one is review and refine. We're not there yet. That'll be my KPI at the end of the year. I'll be sitting down with my bosses to figure out have I performed or not, but that's part of the review and refine. And then the seventh one that actually isn't there that I need to add in is the connectivity. I know you had somebody here from the Commission today, so one of the things that we've done under the UNFC4S is created great links with the European Commissions in Brussels, in particular around DG FISMA, to figure out from a policy perspective where are they at, and actually how can we understand and get slightly ahead of that so that we don't get caught out that they come out with something and we haven't had an opportunity to input to that. And that's, from an Irish perspective, I suppose, trying to make this nice colour deck real for you. You know, when you think of Ireland, you think of St. Patrick's Day, you think about the Green Isle, you fly into Ireland, all this is green fields, but we've got loads of cows, we've got huge challenges around carbon, and we have been lagging behind for the last few years around the decarbonisation agenda, in part because we had no money over the last number of years. It was being spent on other things, other priorities. And where we are now is that we're going to fail to meet our EU 2020 targets. So that's quite blunt. But we will meet our EU 2030 targets. But what we've had to go through in the last few years is actually from, one would assume the Green Island, but the reality isn't there. However, in following this process, it has allowed us to leapfrog where we were and get to a leadership position, we hope. So in the last few months, with the tone set from the top, from our Taoiseach, from our Prime Minister, we have used this tool to assess, set priorities, and government have set aside 22 billion between now and 2027 to work towards decarbonising Ireland's national economy. The total investment required is 50 billion, so that is a 28 billion euro opportunity for private capital to crowd in on top of government capital. We just issued, the state issued a 3 billion euro green bond a few weeks ago. Sustainalytics did the framework for us. So again, transparency and so on, which you guys were talking about earlier on. But what was really interesting about that was that our National Treasury Management Agency had to go to serious people like you in this room and convince them that our policies to decarbonise Ireland were investable, were bankable, and that they were going to work. And so while we took 3 billion off the table for the first cut, the state could have taken 12 billion, such was the interest in the first issuance of Ireland's green bond. And I think we're only the fourth country in Europe to issue a green bond. So we were thrilled of the success of that. We've also set up a 500 million euro climate innovation fund to assist people around innovation and products and services space. We are going through our parliament right now. We're divesting our sovereign fund out of fossil fuels. It's only 300 million or so, but it's the first sovereign in the world to do that, and that's going through our parliament at the moment. And as I said, our Prime Minister is setting the tone from the top, recognising that we've been lagging behind. What he wants to be is a leader rather than a follower, because what we see in this is doing the right thing, but also job opportunities. So Ireland is moving in the right direction from a financial services centre perspective, because we've used this model. And what this model has allowed us achieve, as I said, is accelerated our awareness, where we want to be, and bring people in a public-private way forward with us. So we're following this model and we're reaping the rewards. And I suppose these are the other centres in Europe following this model as well. It's not just small Dublin, it's also Frankfurt. Frankfurt, under the FC4S Europe, we're now assisting them develop Frankfurt's strategic plan for green and sustainable finance. And I said again, Frankfurt's green and sustainable finance plan, one of the big beasts of Europe. So we're thrilled with that. Geneva and Zurich are doing very well in this space. They've been working in this area for a long time. London has got the Green Finance Initiative. You've got Luxembourg, you've got Milan, and Paris, again, is the leader in this space, from my perspective, at a global level. And what happened in COP21 and how Paris has leveraged off that, and what the Paris-based institutions are doing is quite phenomenal. And then obviously Stockholm, and Stockholm is merging as almost like a green fintech hub. What I'm here today, I may or may not be doing it well, but part of my job is like a traveling salesman. We were thrilled that Ankel and Barcelona were in Dublin last week. I was thrilled to meet Luis and his colleagues a few months ago here in Barcelona. There are a number of centres already on board, which is terrific. We've got a grant from the European Commission, and we'd love to bring more centres on board into this family. And as I said, join Dublin, London, Paris, Frankfurt, and the others to mobilise our centres in Europe to meet the European targets of mobilising 2 trillion over the next between now and 2030. And so we'd love to work with Barcelona, who is a world-class financial centre, and it's evident by the people in this room and who's attending. And what I found fascinating was the discussions on the panels, which again were world-class. So we would love to work with Barcelona, if at all possible, Luis, and the guys, to maybe support this process, to begin to work with the academic institutions and the banks here through the Barcelona Financial Centre to assess the position of Barcelona where you are. And we have a tool to do that. 12 centres did that a few months ago. Set priorities, again at the local government level. Like Ireland, we've got a public-private partnership panel together, and means that people can talk about policy and get things done. Build capacity, BDO, we're talking about that earlier on, and again, that's part of what we're doing today. And then catalyse action, which again, I understand is happening. Santana and others are supporting innovation at this level within their own banks. So partly today, we'd love to have Barcelona on board. I issue an invitation. And in closing, why do we think that's important? Because it's key that we mobilise European financial centres and support this agenda. It's key that we progress European financial centres from level 0 to level 5. And we saw that with BDO. You can just sit there and be a market taker, or you can be a market maker, and we can see the rewards you can reap from that. We want to meet the EU 2 trillion European needs investment target. From an Irish perspective, that helps us meet our targets. But in doing so, and the fundamental point is, we want to ensure into the future that it's a European capital, European know-how, European services that are being used around the world to finance the emerging markets' decarbonisation efforts into the future, because that will fundamentally underpin Europe's competitiveness over the next number of decades. Because sustainability as an agenda, as you saw from BDO, it's not I can leave at the door, it's now integrated across all types of businesses, and the capital markets are now following suit. So again, I'm delighted to be here. The invitation is there formally today, and thank you, Louise, and thank you to everybody for listening to me. I think I'm the second last speaker before lunch, which is never a good place to be, but thank you very much.
Y por último, le cedo la palabra a Josep María Sánchez, director general de Política Financiera de Generalitat, que hará el cierre de la jornada y las conclusiones. Muchas gracias, Josep María.
Muchas gracias. Well, first of all, to say thank you to Mr. Nolan for this interesting presentation that has permitted to know the latest developments and your work that you are doing together with the United Nations Environment Programme to expand the green and financial sustainability to the green and sustainability finances across Europe. And thank you for your job. I, bueno, entrem a la cloenda de la sessió. En aquesta cloenda, pues, agrair a l'Institut d'Estudis Financers i a l'Associació Barcelona Centre Financer Europeu per la iniciativa i l'organització, l'esforç d'organitzar aquesta jornada, a la Borsa de Barcelona per la seva sensibilitat amb el tema i la seva capacitat de posar a disposició dels organitzadors les seves instal·lacions i els seus serveis, y a todos los ponentes que han participado en la sesión, pues por venir a explicarnos este tema que, aunque es muy importante, pues podemos decir que era mucho menos conocido cuando empezábamos esta mañana, al menos para mí. Y decía Josep Soler que el objetivo de la jornada era pues, a aumentar el conocimiento de en relación a las finanzas verdes y sostenibles. Yo creo que el objetivo se ha cumplido. Durante la jornada pues, hemos tenido a la directora general adjunta de Medio Ambiente de la Comisión Europea y hemos tenido una introducción magnífica. Hemos podido aprender o recordar en algún caso que en el trabajo en que se está realizando a partir del Acuerdo de París desde diciembre de 2015, tampoco es tan antiguo, reciente, aunque es verdad que hay todos los protocolos de Kioto que ya tienen mucha historia y por tanto es una demostración de que se necesitan impulsos continuados. Pero en este Acuerdo de París, en diciembre de 2015, de alguna forma se estableció un nuevo rumbo para la economía mundial basado en una sociedad baja en carbono y la Unión Europea coge el compromiso de reducir las emisiones de CO2 en un 40% en el conjunto de los sectores de la economía para 2030. La Unión Europea ha trazado una estrategia de liderazgo en el tránsito hacia, es un concepto que ha salido, en el tránsito hacia una economía baja en carbono y que requiere una importante transformación económica en todos los agentes económicos. Y en esta transformación el sector financiero deviene un agente clave. La Comisión Europea, también nos explicaba la directora Joanna Drake y luego también en otras intervenciones, publicó un plan de acción que es de marzo del presente año sobre el crecimiento de las finanzas sostenibles en el marco de la iniciativa de la Unión de los Mercados de Capitales. El objetivo de este plan sería integrar totalmente las finanzas sostenibles en el núcleo del sistema financiero de la Unión Europea, dándole un enfoque a largo plazo. Y tenía 3 pilares básicos que también hemos visto en esta presentación, que por un lado son la realineación del ahorro e inversión en pos de un crecimiento sostenible e incluyente, la consideración de riesgos y oportunidades relacionadas con el clima, el medio ambiente y los asuntos sociales desde un punto de vista financiero, incorporándolos al negocio como elementos habituales de las empresas. Y para ambas cuestiones, fomentar la transparencia y el pensamiento a largo plazo. Estos 3 pilares se concretan en 10 actuaciones que se han repasado de una forma u otra durante la sesión, como establecer una clasificación oficial de las actividades sostenibles, una taxonomía, podríamos decir, formular normas y etiquetas para los productos financieros verdes, promover, en definitiva, la inversión en proyectos sostenibles, reforzar, por tanto, la sostenibilidad desde diferentes ámbitos y perspectivas. Y un aspecto que ya enlaza con la realidad de las empresas es que también una de las actuaciones es tendente a reforzar el gobierno corporativo sostenible y mitigar el enfoque a corto plazo en los mercados de capitales. Se espera de estas actuaciones que los comités en las empresas deban implementar y hacer pública la estrategia y objetivos de sostenibilidad de las empresas. Para expandir todas estas finanzas sostenibles, pues el señor Nolan dirige un partenariado con el Programa de las Naciones Unidas y, en definitiva, pues, expresa la importancia que se le da a nivel de la Unión Europea para conseguir esta expansión de las finanzas sostenibles. Hemos visto también el ejemplo de París, que es líder en la expansión de las finanzas sostenibles. Hemos visto en una mesa redonda todos los problemas respecto a definiciones, taxonomías, etiquetas, como estandarizar de alguna forma los productos relacionados con las finanzas sostenibles. Hemos visto también en otra mesa redonda los casos más pegados a la realidad de las emisiones por parte de las entidades financieras distribuidoras de estas emisiones y por parte de 2 emisores que han realizado ya sus experiencias satisfactoriamente en finanzas sostenibles o sociales o verdes, depende del caso. Y creo que, en definitiva, alguna de las conclusiones que podemos decir y que se han repetido es que las finanzas verdes y sostenibles están aquí para quedarse, están en una fase inicial, pero van a tener forzosamente un desarrollo creciente y que este desarrollo involucra a todos los agentes económicos, siendo el sector financiero pues, un actor principal. Yo, para finalizar, solo pensar que esta jornada va a ser una primera jornada de otras que pueden venir, porque lo requerirán los desarrollos que vengan y porque seguramente, forzosamente y de forma inevitable, nos hemos tenido que quedar en el planteamiento de este esquema de financiación de finanzas sostenibles, en las experiencias que se conocen, que también forzosamente son de grandes corporaciones y de bancos, y que una cuestión que también planteaba Josep Solé en la ponencia del director general, tendrá que extenderse a las medianas y pequeñas empresas, de alguna forma, sin tener la posibilidad de utilizar los mismos instrumentos, pero tendrán que ser otros. Por tanto, pues, sin más que añadir, donaríem per conclosa la jornada i agrair a tots vostès la seva presència. Gràcies.